Welcome to Beyond the Buzzer.
Hi, I'm Josh, and this is my best friend Kyle.
You might recognize us. We are rural American high school athletes from the 90s, after all.
And we're here again on camera after 30 years to bring you our travels from
Beyond the Buzzer.
Welcome, everybody. This is Ace One, and this is my best friend, the Duke. We're back here on Beyond the Buzzer. This is our episode 10. Episode 10. And
yes, indeed.
Actually, I think it's just past our 1 year anniversary. We owe you guys a lot more footage, but we've been busy. We've been traveling, and so it takes time to sit down and get the communications going.
Yeah. We've also been busy, as you can see, growing beards and actually losing a little weight. So
yeah, absolutely. You got to get out there and get in shape, and you get the sage, and
making new T-shirts, of course.
Yeah, we're going to talk about these a little bit more, but we're going to debut our uniforms, and this is some of the footage from our past when we were rural American high school athletes.
As most of you already know, of course.
Life gets tough when you're 46 and a half. Kyle's not quite 46 and a half yet. He's just barely over 46, but life comes at you, and people talk about a midlife crisis and, family and kids and everything. I didn't have the money to buy a yellow Camaro, although that was what I'd prefer to do with my midlife crisis. But, I was like, it's just time to get out of town. I got to spend some time with my buddy. I got to clear my head, get ready for work. We got a senior year coming up for my boy, kids in high school. Kyle's got kids in high school. And so I call my best friend and say, hey, Dublin's always been on my list. What do you think about joining me for an Irish weekend? And so episode 10, the Irish weekend, the phone call was answered. A phone call was answered. I talked to Kyle. He went to talk to the chiropractor gods to see if we could make it work. And we went to Ireland for a weekend. You can do it. We're going to tell you how.
No guns were necessary for this trip. No. It was just let's do it. So let's get started. Now, Ace One had a little pit stop before we made it to Ireland.
When you're going overseas and you're thinking about like how you're going to spend your midlife crisis when you're 46 and a half, island tour comes into view. Everybody just wants to go on an island tour. And so I picked two of the islands that most people would go to for a tropical retreat, Iceland and Ireland. And Kyle tried to put it together for Iceland. The airfare is a little different for him where he's coming from the States, opposed to me in Halifax. But apparently, folks, if you fly Iceland Air, you can go to Europe. You stop over, you lay over for a couple of days. Your airfare is the same. And I've heard this a lot of people traveling. So why not stop in this volcanic island in the middle of the Atlantic on my way to Ireland to see Kyle? So I got there a couple of days before. Airfare is always cheaper if you don't fly over the weekend. So it extended a little bit. So got into Iceland, landed, and here's a statue of Leif Erikson, who you guys may have heard of. He's a Viking that discovered the area. There's no people, no things here. It's a very new land. This is their famous church because in Europe you have to have a church to center your community around. They didn't have them until like the 80s, and so they built this in 1986 so they would have an iconic landmark too. And they gave it a really hard to pronounce name after an Icelandic poet from the 1600s. So it's HALLGRIMSKRIKRJA. And I don't know how to say that, and it wasn't pronounced for me. So this is the church.
Jam, of course.
It's the one we're looking at. It's got a beautiful town, little bitty place. Iceland's expensive. Get your sandwiches at the store and stuff, but it's a great town to walk around for a couple of days in Reykjavik, and then you get out and see the stuff in the country. So just a couple pics for my quick layover on the way to meet the Duke. Very traditional Iceland stuff. You see the street, all the tourist shops, wool, bars, coffee shops, of course. Lots of Viking history here. The people have been through it over there over the years with the weather and the changes. This is the Lebowski bar, which I didn't know there was a Lebowski but there's one in Reykjavik. So all you Lebowski fans, you can come over here and get your wear your robe, play a little bowling, and get your White Russians.
I hope they had a rug that tied the room together.
It is right there in the front room.
Yep. There we go. Yeah. That looks
Just
tasty.
my morning mapping out what I'm going to do for the day. So Iceland is cool. It's where the Europe plate and the North American plate smashed together. So like 10% of the country is on fire with volcanoes, 10% is glaciers, and so you see the town and do what you want to do. But the big thing is get out to the hot springs, the lagoons, and see all this stuff. So there's just a few pictures of me being in town. Great layover. So
here comes the lagoon. That looks amazing.
it was very relaxing. I needed it. Had about 5 hours in this warm geothermal water from about 200 meters deep. They pipe in a fresh and a salt water from under the ocean. Everything's geothermal to the point they have banana plantations and greenhouses over there and stuff. But this is kind of the most famous one. There's a lot of ones to get to, but I had an amazing time. The hot water is getting pumped. You get the bus ride in and out. You get a free mud mask, and you can
Your
see how
skin looks
beautiful.
great. That must have been after the mud mask.
You can see how beautiful the skin gets after being in this blue lagoon. It's amazing. Geothermal plants in the background, all the lava rock packed up. So yeah, just a little cafeteria and stuff. So I didn't want to spend too much time on all the Iceland stuff, but I want to make sure that everybody knows that there is an island in the middle of the Atlantic that you can stop at, and it's basically Alaska without Kodiak bears. This is a crater, a volcano crater.
Or Shaybergs.
This is
no Shaybergs in Iceland.
None. This is one of their major waterfalls on the Ring of Fire tour, which I did on a bus tour, and we'll talk more about this. But Kyle and I have been going back and forth to Europe. We've had that great walking tour in Boston, and so booking these tours is the way to go. We get so much more history, so much stuff
absolutely.
on the way there. And
a great tour guide makes such a big difference.
I had a great one in Iceland. She broken Iceland, beautiful accent, and talking about all the different stuff. So we saw an Icelandic horse and went back to the church, saw some geysers, waterfalls. That's what you do while you're there. It's only about 1,000 kilometers to drive around the island. I think going and renting a car, doing some of the excursions on your own would be fun. And then definitely the land
of
ice,
trolls.
snow, trolls, elves, Vikings. It's all there. A really cool place.
Then we met up in Dublin.
And we both had our uniforms on. So these are the Beyond Buzzers official shirts. And we're also wearing track jackets tonight on top of these because we learned these weren't allowed some places. We learned a lot about the Irish people. They've been through it. I'm not saying they've been through it like the Middle East or, indigenous people across the world or slavery or stuff like that, but they have not had an easy time. So a lot of signs we heard back before the 70s in England, they said no blacks, no Irish, and no dogs. Well, we didn't find that over there, but we did find that they said no tracksuits. And so
and we'll mention that again later. So keep that in the back of your mind. We had no idea
of this because we like breaking the rules, So there's the logos on the back. We get recognized by those shirts, of course.
Absolutely. So many autograph seekers around town while we were walking through. So here, this was when we were on our way to our first destination, trying to get a picture of this church, and of course, this lovely old man kept getting in the picture. But so that's just how the back of our cab as we were on our way to the Brazen Head, which is Ireland's oldest pub.
This is our first destination. I got to Dublin about noon the night before Kyle arrived, so I went out and did some reconnaissance. Just wanted to see the Tipple Bar district and met some great people. They all look and talked and acted like Conor McGregor. I think I was part of a UFC group for a little while, but they gave me all the spots to take. Kyle, when he got there the next day, and they said, go to the Brazen Head. It's been there since the Vikings, so this place is like 1024 or something.
Something ridiculous.
it's wild. So we got our first Irish Guinness, which they are different over there. They're amazing.
So
Um,
much better.
looking at these walls and these bricks and stuff, they've been there, over 1,000 years. They're
1198.
98.
There you go.
It had a nice courtyard, music set up, great food. It was on the north side of town, not right in the heart of the district that we spent most of our time. So this was kind of an excursion just to get out and pass some time and go to something like this. And it was great. That much of American dollar bills, the memorabilia, Irish pubs are not just exist in the States and malls, they're actually in Ireland too.
Yes. Even though from what we gathered while we were there are more Irish people outside of Ireland than in Ireland, it sounds like.
And yeah, apparently they shagged the world. I know I have an Irish great grandfather. Everybody claims to have a little bit of Irish in them. They had to leave for famines and wars and different things, but they did get a good job of making our DNA spread everywhere. So
Yeah,
they're
so this was our first Guinness together, and it definitely hits different over there. Like I'm not a big fan of Guinness here, but I could drink them over there all day long.
smooth and
And
easy
we
drinking,
did.
and they are only 4%, so you can go the distance with them. They're much kinder than our American IPAs and craft brews.
Yes.
So yeah, well, you
So
can
just
see
a
it's just
very cool atmosphere. I don't know if we have a picture, but around this area where we sit, they had all kinds of badges from different police departments all over the world.
yeah. And
Um,
I had read about this a little bit, as we talk about as pitiful it is, these people were white people who were oppressed, even though that happens across the world. But Irish had a lot of hard times getting jobs when they went other places, and so the police department was somewhere they knew they could get a pension for their family. And you see that tradition in the Boston police and around the world, and they have a lot of pride in that. So we saw a lot of police and union badges there. So
yeah.
that was cool. And then we took a walk down the River Liffey.
Yeah, so this is the River Liffey. We actually took a cruise down here. So this kind of splits Dublin into two different sections. Kind of from what we gathered from the locals, kind of a good side and bad side almost.
Yeah, they had a lot of division with the Protestants and the Catholics, and so the Catholics were oppressed. They were on the north side, the Protestants on the south side. The British were occupying them for like 700 years, so it was more the British side. So it's a short river, only about 130 miles, but it is the centerpiece of Dublin and a good landmark, lots of bridges. So we were racing to get to this tour. It was a few miles
Yeah.
away from where we were at the Brazen Head. We didn't know where we were going. We couldn't figure out buses or cabs. And so, as you're touring throughout the country, make sure you know where you're going before you get there. But we did make it.
We took this picture for our buddy Jeremy, who we said at least 1,000 times how much we wish he'd have been there because he would have loved it. But there's a cafe named after him in Dublin.
Which he missed because he won't get his passport. He'll get it soon, though.
Yeah. And
So
here's a
this is
statue. Go ahead.
trying to remember this guy's name. I don't remember what the deal was, but it was something wild. Like I said,
Yeah,
they
he
had
was
a
he
lot
was
of repression
he was the first Catholic elected to their
to their new
parliament or something like that.
to the British Parliament, but he had been raised and schooled in France because he was not able to be educated in his home country. And so, yeah, was the first Irishman elected to the British Parliament to represent Ireland. So he
Yeah,
pigeon set on his head quite a bit.
a lot. Now, right in the middle there, you'll see the lady with her hand raised. That is actually Erin, who the island of Ireland was named after. That is their mythology. She actually came over from Iran and discovered the island and defeated some sort of artificial intelligence. And
Yep. When she
this is a
showed up
story that's gone back hundreds of years.
hundreds and hundreds of years, and the legend Ireland named after her, she shows up from the Middle East with a harp. There's AI math that has taken over the island. You can imagine the druids and all the weird things going back in the Celtic and Gaelic history and stuff like that. She plays the harp, dispels this awful geometry that is just taken over the island that's not working out good. She
No
brings
math.
like
No math.
she brings like four guys or something like that, three guys and like 40 women. The joke was two of them died of exhaustion, and then one guy turned into a salmon for 3,000 years. So we didn't get much details on that because our tour guide had to hold the story. But yeah, Erin of Ireland and the harp that's on Guinness. It's an
Yes.
ancient Middle East goddess that has saved the island of Ireland.
Yes. And then
This
here's just some sculptures. This is representing the big potato famine in Ireland.
But everybody had to leave, and a lot of them probably probably left from here in the River Liffey. A lot of new construction from all the tech boom and stuff at the end of the island, and this harp shaped bridge here. It's
Yeah.
pretty
So here's
cool.
the bridge, and we actually learned that there's a lot of symbolism in the Irish flag, which you might not think of because it's just three colored bars. But one color, I can't remember which one's which. Maybe you can. The one is
The orange
orange is the Catholic side.
Protestant. The orange is the
Orange is the
Protestant side.
Protestant side.
Yeah,
Green's the Catholic, and the white is the bridge in the middle that brought them together. So there is actually a lot of symbolism in just three simple colors.
and it's simply just representing the river of people living on either side and the
Mhm.
wars and stuff they've been through. So we made it barely to this tour boat, and we were excited about taking a cruise up and down the river and learning a lot of history, but we got to learn a lot about unloading boats.
Yes. You see, I'm taking a picture. Josh is talking to one of our fans. I'm pretty sure she was asking for an autograph at the time, but we were trying to get some content recorded. So
Cool.
this is actually a restaurant on this boat.
Yep, it's very cool
This is where
floating.
we saw the tracksuit sign, where no tracksuits were allowed
Yeah, you
at
can
this
wear a
restaurant.
tuxedo. You can wear shorts. You can wear tank tops. You can wear midriffs. None of the code of conduct from elementary school comes in here, but no tracksuits.
No
But
tracksuits.
we're,
Posted
we'll
very
we're,
prominently.
we'll wear tracksuits while we talk about it, especially if they're
Yeah.
from Heath High School.
And of course, when we saw it, I mispronounced it horribly. Apparently, that is pronounced Killarney.
Hmm.
Not how I would have said it, but that's it. That's how the tour guides referred to it. So we're going to take them for their word.
This
So
building wasn't.
there is a lot of a lot of new construction going on in Dublin. They got a big I guess they had a
Huge
big
boom
boom
in the tech and
yeah,
useless fact we learned: you have to remove as many stories you're going to go up. You have to remove the soil that many stories down and let it sit in a pile for a few years to decontaminate and then rebuild it. So you got to be a major investor to get in right here, and then you can't afford to get your glass cylinders upright on your buildings. This is our
and we
tour guide.
also learned, I guess was it the city of Dublin or Ireland in general got a huge settlement from Apple. Like a couple, just
Billions.
pocket change, a couple $1 billion that they've used to do some renovations and really start to fix up the city.
So this guy loves the rivers. He works on the rivers. We're on what before the bridges was the ferry that went back and forth across, and they had a bridge called the Halfpenny Bridge, where the toll was half a penny to get back and forth, which was the white bridge up the river a little bit, also with this white harp shaped bridge. But this is the only ferry still in operation. So we get to go out to the mouth of the River Liffey. We get to see where all they bring in all the ships, all the ferries coming in and out. They had a lot of history on it. Here's two Canadian Navy boats and a German Navy boat. They don't have much of a Navy apparently. Said they had about 8 boats. One was
And
operational.
six of them didn't work or something like that. Yeah.
They could only crew about one or something. So I'm not sure what's going on over there with their defense, but they've won their independence. This is Big Red. He's one of our friends. Hope he's watching.
Shout out to Brandon Laster. This is for you, buddy. We're always thinking of you, man.
You'll be over there with us soon. But these boats are cool. There's like 10 crew on, 10 crew off. Some are sailing, some are unloading the ships, but great dock jobs. Still a very operational dock city. Ferries that run across to Wales and in Liverpool and all kinds of places. The 3-hour tour to go back and forth across the Irish Channel. Bunch of kite surfers at the end of this, and some beaches, and then
Which
this
that
is the back.
last
Yeah,
that last slide was about as far as we could go out because the weather wasn't fantastic that day out on the river.
lucky
So
not to
after
get
all that,
rained on. But we got
yeah,
to say we were on the River Liffey. You got to cruise up and down it, and
yeah,
there's probably a lot more historical tours. But if you're into the industrial wharf culture, take that one at the end down there. It's
yeah.
cool.
But it definitely made us thirsty. So we went back to the Killarney restaurant with no tracksuits so that we could have a delicious beer.
We wouldn't be allowed in there with these.
No, not at all. So then we took to the streets of Dublin and started exploring. For all of our Paducah folks, we found the Dublin KCs.
KC
So
Peaches, which represents the South in a way. We
yeah,
didn't enter. It wasn't 1 o'clock in the morning, so we had no desire to go to KC's. But there is a KC's over there for our Paducah folks.
we did find it. So
This is
and
Europe.
here,
This is why we go to Europe, because we get stuff like this everywhere. This is a
yeah,
big market right in the center, like an arcade, and it's not arcade like you play video games, but a big shopping arcade inside. It's been there forever, and I wanted to take Kyle a place I'd found the night before. One of my buddies had recommended to go get some beef stew. So we're just kind of walking the streets, getting our bearings.
yeah. So here's the Castle Lounge that's into the side of an old castle. Yeah. Established
And
in 1899. Just normal stuff.
these are the streets, very active, lots of people in jackets and stuff. Although the weather was not bad over there, they only have like a spring and a fall, no real winter. We actually saw palm
Yeah.
trees.
And
So
don't
it's
get a lot of
very
snow.
mild.
Not a lot of snow at all.
No, very mild. And next time we go, we'll do the Irish countryside. And we looked at some excursions, but with the short time we had there, we were able to see everything you want to see in Dublin. So
Yeah.
this is
So here's where we decided to have lunch.
O'Neill's, and like I said, I've been there the night before. Travel when you're going, the airfare is one thing. It's not too bad. Kyle and I split a hotel at the Premier Inn by the airport. It was $100 a night. We split that
Yeah.
super easy. Um,
So much more
yeah,
affordable than you think it is.
yeah.
It's probably cheaper to get over there than it is to go out to the West Coast in the
Or
US.
even to go to your major college town for a football game
Yeah.
for the weekend.
Yeah.
But we so when
So
we're
much awesome, amazing street music over there. They are busking everywhere and they are all just insanely talented. So good.
7 days a week, they're throwing it down. They have the Irish folk songs, they have traditional rock and roll, the American rock and roll, and you can't turn a corner without hearing it coming through the pubs. I apologize for this picture for my children.
Case
This
one
is
paying homage to Molly Malone.
Yeah, so Molly Malone's a testament for Irish history. She was they called it a fishmonger, which was a fish of somebody that just sold fish in the market. She came up and she sold the fish from the southern villages, but also she worked in the world's oldest profession. But it's a testament to how perseverance and hard work you can make it, no matter who you are or what you do. Molly Malone ended up making a good life for herself, and now it's good luck if you come and
As
hang
you
out with
can
the
see
statue.
by how worn that area is, it's good luck to touch
So
that area while you're there.
I'm blessed for life.
Yes. So here is our lunch, and people always talk about the food, and they don't think it's going to be good. I thought it
Right.
was amazing myself.
Uh, the Irish stew, I think that we paid $17 for this, and there was more beef and stuff, and beef and
Oh,
lamb than you could ever imagine. It was like
yeah,
Thanksgiving dinner. And the bowl's just never ending with potatoes and the sauce, and it's ready in 5 minutes because they have it heated back in the kitchen. We did, some other meals later that are traditional food, but you won't be disappointed.
not at
Just
all.
no, amazing, saucy. The
So
bread,
here
the
we are.
brown bread with the butter.
Good. Very, very tasty. So then we decided to forge our own rings. So that's where we went next.
While you're in Ireland and you get a chance to forge your own ring, you do it. Kyle had suggested this. I was like, I don't know. And the the more I thought about it, it's like the land of Mordor. We go over there, we sit in the
Yeah.
forge, we make our own rings. We walked in, there's two little leprechaun girls that are hosting the event. They immediately saw the shirts and said, "Beyond the buzzer." We're like, "Yeah, you guys recognize us, right?" They're like, "No." We're like, "Well, we're kind of famous. We're rural American high school athletes from the 90s. We played basketball in West Kentucky and nothing." Kyle told them we had over 20 followers. They nodded. They seemed like they understood. And then we commenced to meet people from California, Nova Scotia, from all over the world that were in here, and shared a great moment with them.
We were the celebrities of the group. There was no doubt about that. So yeah, we start off with just this basic just piece of silver, and we forged it, hammered it, and we're
Shaped it.
basically professional jewelry makers now.
We wear
So
them every day to remind us of our vacation and our trip there. Um, it was really cool just to sit down with other tourists and have two people from Ireland guide you through the experience, listening to the accents, everybody sharing stories, a great chance to come together. Uh, when you're in a foreign country with all these different people and share stories about where you've been in the country, where you're going, different suggestions, different places to go, and then have these people walk you through this. So really fun time and a really traditional experience. I don't think this is something they
yeah,
offer a lot of places right in the middle of town and just a cool area. So,
yeah, just in the upstairs section of a jewelry shop. So
which some amazing jewelry too, and
yeah,
different styles, rings.
so then
Nope,
after we finished, we went out. Silverworks is the name of the place where we did
still
our
works.
forging. But when we got finished, this
F.
was, I believe, this was a Friday night, right? And the streets were
This
packed.
Yep, this is the sun went down on us while we were in there, so we came out to a live streets. I don't think there's an open container in Ireland law, or maybe there is, but doesn't seem to be any issues. We saw very few people, if any, out of control. Everybody was very, social, having a great time. We see a lot of police presence, and there's over 1,000 pubs in the city district. So not to be stereotypical of their culture, but they definitely like to have a good time.
Yes, definitely. And this is the first of a few of references to The Office, which happens to be my favorite TV show. So I saw this Diwali, so I had to take a picture that reminded me of Michael Scott. There's the finished product of the ring that I made. I went for a pinky ring just because it seemed the most useful as far as when I was at work. I didn't want to put anything on,
Because Kyle's
any
working at
other
this as a
fingers.
chiropractor, so he
Work,
didn't want to stab anybody or scrape them. And he's
even
also
though this ring is super smooth. So
a duke, and that's representative of royalty when you're wearing pinky fingers. I went for a ring finger, but I got too aggressive with a hammer, so ended up with a ring for my middle finger, which is make it a little fancier when I'm telling people I don't like them, I guess.
yeah. So here's another one of my many properties in Europe that we ran across. So I just took a quick picture just to, get over to the attorneys so I could
Well, I found
start
some
to
more
claim my
history.
property over there.
I found more history on you on my research. So
Awesome.
this is the most iconic bar, I guess, in Dublin, and it's a little cliche. The tour guides and the locals hate it that you go there, and they're going to charge at least triple to quadruple amount for a Guinness, and you're going to go everywhere else. I was able to peruse through the night before, but it's shoulder to shoulder, and I saw some live music. So Kyle and I were just going to pop our heads in and cross this off the list. But
Yeah.
what's cool about this was it used to be, before it was a tourist bar, it was an artist bar. And this is where poets and songwriters and people would gather, and they were saying bands like Radiohead played here to a crowd of like 9 before it got popular. And now some of that culture is gone, and they don't have that commune anymore for the artist, but it is a great place to see while you're over there. And the whole
Yeah.
district was named after the Temple family. So this is the Temple Bar, but this is the Temple
Yeah.
district. So
And also pretty close to where we're standing or where this shot is, I believe they said there is a 24/7 live camera that
yes,
streams. I don't know if it's on YouTube or where it is. They said, if you ever get bored at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning and want to watch drunk people stumble around, that
it,
that camera provides some pretty interesting footage.
It's going to be part of my pastimes this winter. So this whole district's just cool. So we're just cruising through. So these cool cobblestone streets that they still have, but of course in Ireland most of them are paved with bottle caps as well as cobblestones. So we just wanted to point that out.
Oh, so this was the next morning. So we were getting ready for our tour. And when I go to Europe, I like to have chocolate bread because it's delicious. It is a croissant basically filled with chocolate, and I love it. So I
And
had one.
the bread's better over there. It's more nutritious. It's amazing. So we tried to go to breakfast, but everything was packed. They had some delicious looking breakfasts, but we're just trying to find the location for our tour guide so we can get out of there for a minute and try to find an Irish coffee and come back.
So here's the Badass Temple Bar. I just thought that was a good name for a bar, so I took a quick picture. And this is where we stopped and had our first Irish coffee. And
Our only one,
and
which
let
was
me tell
unfortunate.
you how delicious this stuff is.
So first, this is a merchant guild hall, so an old merchant union hall from of course, all the wool sweaters and stuff you think of in Ireland. So this is their meeting place, and it is so ornate. It's like a fancy bank almost. They've got an archway out front that's been there for 1200, no telling how long. We come in and we talk to the bartender. We order these, and I'm not sure what he put. This is not cream. This is not milk. This is not ice cream. There's something magic on top of these that is cold, and that every drink you take it and it pours down to the bottom, and you get that sip every time. They're really good. And we also learned of a new sport while we were in this bar.
Yes. We learned about curly, which is fastest sport on grass, I believe was how they referred to it.
We watched it on YouTube. It's like lacrosse, except they balance the ball on this wooden stick, and seems pretty awesome. They were into it. So maybe a live hurley match when you get to Ireland.
So here's the beer temple. I just thought that was a cool name. So we took a picture of that. And this is, I believe, when we're start to head over to Dublin Castle.
Yep,
So this is when we started our tour of Dublin Castle.
So this gate right here is the entryway. So I read a little bit about Dublin Castle. I have some notes on that. So this was the seat of British Parliament in Dublin from 1204 to 1922, when Ireland began to gain their independence. It was there was a fire like in the mid 1700s. So a lot of the constructions like late 1700s, 1800s, but there are some older parts of the castle from the year 100. But yeah, there's actually, I read this today. The Duke of Wellington visited this castle in 1807 amongst other dignitaries.
That's how we roll.
Oh, back up one more. Let me talk about this really quick, because this was interesting. We talk about the British occupation, and of course we know what that's done to the world. Excuse me. There's a statue of Justice up here on top of the gate. If you Google a statue of Justice, Janus, or the Greek and Roman gods, you'll notice a lot of times the scale is balanced and the statue has a blindfold on. Well, this statue ironically has no blindfold, and the scales are imbalanced, and it faces towards the courtyard, towards the British people, showing that possibly that justice is imbalanced and the blinders are off and away from the Irish people. So that was interesting to point out. What else was cool about this was you're not allowed to do walking tours inside this courtyard. But
That's true.
our tour guide said we're going in. He asked where we're all from. Most of the people in our tour were from Germany. So he said, if anybody in a big black suit comes up and tries to run them out, just say that you're all my cousins from Germany. So that was what we're going to go with. But he snuck us in, did his spill, and just a fantastic guy. So
yeah. So here's where we started to go towards the outside and some of the older parts of the castle. So
the tower's from around 10, and the abbey off the back of it was from around the 1200s. And then he pointed out this really beautiful industrial building from the 1960s. They decided to put a cross of it, And then he also mentioned how the tours on top of that tower are supposed to start happening in 2019, displaying that bureaucracy moves slowly and poorly everywhere.
Yes, definitely. So here
So
we are going around towards the front of the Abbey, and he's pointing out the two statues here on each side of the door. I believe he's pointing at St. Patrick right now.
So St. Patrick, of course, people will recognize, and then Billy Baru is the other guy who led
Yes,
he led the revolution.
Billy, which I believe translates to Billy the Cow Taxer or something like that.
Billy the Cow Taxer ran all the Vikings out at some point with the harp symbolism from Aaron earlier. And so he get his place in front of the Abbey along with St. Patrick that have converted the island from paganism to Irish to Catholic years and years ago. There's our tour guide. The best guy. If you guys get a chance,
the guy in the green sweater. Yes, he was our tour guide. His name is Keith, and we'll talk about him later on. But he was phenomenal, and I believe he said he was one of maybe 5 people or so that were actually certified by the country of Ireland as a historian for the country. So this guy knows his stuff, and he was
studies
awesome.
the Irish language, very passionate about his country. Goes on vacation every year to a different Irish pub, and so the one he was going to go to this year was the highest elevation Irish pub, and DePaul invited us all to join him. Would probably be a good idea. So this guy's full of knowledge.
Absolutely.
All right, back here at the Irish Castle, we had to take a short break, but this is two of the famous people. This is St. Patrick, who is above my shoulder, who I'm pointing to, and Billy the Cow Taxer on the other side, who I think is the island of Vikings.
Yes, and you'll see his name. You'll see his name come up again later on in the show.
And of course, the people have been to Europe and haven't been to Europe, this architecture you just get to walk past every day is just part of the experience. It's so beautiful. So this is part of the Palace Complex too, and this is actually a wall that we're looking at is built right here because some of the Irish slums are on the other side. So when Queen Victoria and other British royalty came and stayed, they built this wall so they couldn't see the poverty they were causing, I guess, on the other side.
Yes, and you'll notice this intricate pattern there on the grass, which we learned is actually not a leprechaun racetrack, which
seems obvious.
Yes,
it's laid in brick. It's small. But the tour guide explained that it's not for leprechauns to race around. It's a symbol of ancient Ireland. There's some stuff in Ireland that's been there since before the pyramids, and they have all these cool indigenous cultures that have risen and fallen, and there's lost to history, a lot of them. But these are symbolism that could mean eternal life or death to all.
From above. We don't know.
We don't know.
But one repeating, pattern that we did see with the symbolism is they use these spirals. They're closed to just represent the never ending.
But this is like where the president's airplane would land from different countries. They would land the helicopter there, get their dinners and everything. So this is still a part of the Irish active government.
And originally, they gave us the opportunity to land here with us being such large celebrities. We were like,
we don't have a copter, just a plane.
Yeah, we'll take the real experience of just coming in on an airplane. So.
With the locals, but this is also this green. Let's go back to the green just for a second. So I wanted to talk about this. There's the River Liffey, and then there was another river that flew into Dublin. And so this high point that we're actually on at that green is where the two rivers converge, and there's a really dark water there. And the ancient word for dark was dub, and the word for land was Lynn. So this is Dublin. So this is where the water came from. And actually this water was really black and used for it was actually used for drinking water, and the myth is that the dark color of Guinness comes from this dark green. But this is like
that was the first water they used to make the first Guinness. Yeah.
Yep. And it's like 33 feet above sea level. So this is the high point of all of Dublin. So this is
this is the highest point in Ireland right here.
All of yeah, people from ancient Ireland all the way through the Vikings, through the British, through the Irish having it again. This was has always been a major gathering point in Dublin. Uh, this is cool that we walked through this
Yes.
a couple of times on tours, but that just to kind of explain the history of Ireland that is different than maybe where we're from in the States or Canada or other places in the Western world. There was a horrible heroin problem in Ireland for a long time, and it just shows you what it takes for activists to stand out. So he stopped and talked to this lady. Her name was Veronica Guin or something like that. Guerin. She was a journalist and started exposing the criminal underworld and all the problems going on in Ireland. So in 1995, two people came to her front door and shot her in the leg. And then in 1996, a couple years later, two men pulled up on a motorcycle and shot her 5 times till she died, showing
Yeah.
like just the how much work it was to change the tides, I guess, over there in Dublin. So a cool story
There's
about,
actually there's a movie about her, I do believe.
but
That, I think it's just
we're,
the I think
we're
the movie is her name, if I'm not
while we were
mistaken.
watching the Biggie and Tupac sagas of the '90s, this is
Yeah.
the real life of what was playing out over there for just trying to raise awareness about how to help out people, I guess.
And just to show how recent this is, I believe she was killed in 1996. Our tour guide that was telling us all this was actually friends with her nephew.
Yeah,
So
and
I mean,
still hangs
it
out with
wasn't
her.
that long ago.
But it was cool for him to stop and mention stuff like this that I think a lot of people would pass by. So it gave us a little bit more depth on the experience the Irish people have had over there.
So 1996 was, of course, when we were flourishing in our senior year as rural
When
American
this
high school
jacket was
athletes.
getting
Yes.
worn to basketball games on Friday nights in the Golden Palace.
So here we're Jonathan Swift is quite prominent over in Ireland.
Big author, probably
Any of
most
you have
familiar
ever
with.
read Gulliver's Travels or seen the movie with Jack Black? This is
Might
the
be
man that
worth
was responsible.
going back because apparently there's a lot of political innuendos and symbolism with the giants on the islands and how they had to fight against them to take them over. So we get to see a lot about that, and yeah, lots of heroes from over there. And of course, they have U2 and James Joyce, and others we'll talk about when we go to the Dublin Library. But lots of heroes for such a small population of an island. And actually, something else that was interesting I'll just touch on really quick is it's the only island that is less populated now than it was in the 1800s because of how many people had to leave because of a famine and different things. So
So, and this seems like an appropriate story. We have Halloween approaching very soon. So this was our first ghost story while we were in Ireland.
tour
So,
guide was so
Keith
good
was
to
telling
stop and
us here.
just to
Yep,
stop and tell us different stories and anecdotes and say, hey, this is going to add some minutes to the tour. And of course, we just were lapping it up. So I'll let you tell the
absolutely.
story about it.
Yeah. So this is the story of I believe she was a brothel owner, if I remember correctly. Her name was Dorcas, and she had fallen into a relationship with the town sheriff, who happened to be married, and
And
also owned all of the media outlets in the city. I believe 4 newspapers, if I remember
so,
right.
like a Robert Murdoch or whoever owns the other ones these days, very powerful individual.
Uh,
And of course, he gets involved with this scandal and he accuses her of being a witch because that's what you do when you own all the papers and you're about to get exposed.
and if I remember right, I believe the story was that she got pregnant, but he was already married with multiple children. I want to say 4, but I'm not sure.
Yeah.
So, of course, the only logical explanation, solution to that story was to declare her a witch. But it did
But
turn out that they actually raided her brothel and found the bodies of 6 men, I believe, in the basement.
yep, so she was the world's first women's
World's first female serial killer.
serial killer.
There you go.
So maybe a little bit of a witch, but it sounds like some people met some justice through her hands. But if
Right.
there's a 40 steps or so between this gate and where her establishment was, and apparently if you walk through there, you're an immoral character. you will feel a slight touch on your left shoulder from the ghost of this lady. So we definitely finished up our tour, but knew we had to come back to this spot and take the walk of shame and see if this would happen. And we're both clean. We're fine. We're good.
We were not touched on the shoulder, so we obviously have great moral character.
Excellent people. Keep following.
This is a plaque of Dorcas we found actually inside St. Patrick's Cathedral. So take that for what it's worth.
We don't know where the root word Dorcas comes from, but it's a beautiful name. Might want to pass it on.
Yep.
So this
So
is
here, this is St. Patrick's Cathedral, which we were kind of surprised to learn is actually not a Catholic cathedral.
No, they there was a wooden church there that was a Viking church millions of years ago, you know, and not millions, but hundreds and thousands. And then apparently there was an ancient well here where the St. Patrick who came over and started getting the chieftains to buy into the Catholicism, he used to baptize them out of there. So this has gone back from Protestant to Catholic, Protestant to Catholic, but St. Patrick's Cathedral in Ireland is a Protestant cathedral today. Very similar to a Westminster Abbey as we went through in England a little bit.
Like a smaller version, but still absolutely 100% worth going into.
And surrounded by the Liberties, and the Liberties was the neighborhood that a lot of the oppressed Irish Catholics had lived in slums and stuff like that. So right in that same neighborhood. So we get to go inside and see some cool stuff in there.
Yeah, and we'll get to that a little later in the show because that was our tour for the next day. We actually got to go inside. Now, this next church we're walking to is actually the Christ Church in Dublin, which is massive. But as we get around, we'll get to it in just a second. This is actually the layout of an actual Viking settlement that was there. This was a layout of a house that
so that's
they
where
left
all
there.
the pillars are. That shows you how these places go back forever. So the Christ Cathedral is the second oldest probably there in Dublin, very famous. And this door down here went to the crypt.
Is brilliant. So if anybody's looking for an investment opportunity, I believe Ace One and I have come up with one because back in its heyday, there's actually a bar underneath this church that was called Hell.
You go to the crypt, you drink, you gamble in the basement of the church, and that's hell. And we have reservations.
Yes. A bar under a church called Hell is absolutely brilliant marketing, especially for how long? For hundreds of years ago, however long ago that was.
We didn't get to visit it, but we know it's there. We'll be back to hell.
If anybody has access to an abandoned church, they want to put a bar under it, we're ready to invest. Just let us know.
But really cool old history. We walk around to this more modern building on the side, city council, for some more stories. So,
which we did go. We didn't make it, but right around the corner from St. Patrick's, which we might have a picture coming up later, was our second ghost story, which was the library that we went to. That Narcissist, I believe, was his name.
It was where the word narcissism comes from. We learned a lot of anecdotes that are Irish that have bled into our culture. So, yeah, he owned this library. Apparently, he was not a great guy. Had a niece that he was extremely abusive to, and she left a letter about how self-centered he was and how much of a jerk and how much he needed to be better to his family, hidden in the library, somewhere in a book for him to search for, and he never found it in his lifetime. So
the story is that he haunts that library, and if you go in there, he will lead you to a book that is relevant to your life at that moment. Like I said, we did not make it into the library because it closed fairly early and we were still on our tour. But
we walked around it to check it out.
Yeah.
So narcissism, he's a real guy.
Yeah. Yes. So here's we were hungry. It was time to get some lunch at the most famous fish and chips place in Dublin.
Yeah, and our history. Kyle is into the collecting of memorabilia from toys and our childhood and the Gen X stuff, and I like the rock and roll. So you talk Kyle into this, like, hey, we need to check this out because this is where Bruce Springsteen comes when he comes. This is where Mick Jagger comes. This is where BB King's come. And they didn't have a liquor license, which is, we think that you probably have to do something really, really wrong in Dublin not to get one. But they had amazing fish and chips. So
Oh,
we were
so good.
checking out the list. We know all these celebrities are stopping here while we're in town. So we're reading through the names to see, who all's on here. Made some discoveries.
And we looked at the guys. We're like, hey, we noticed there's a couple names missing from your list. As you can see, Ace One pointing there. But I mean, before we even got out the door, they rectified the situation. You can see Ace One and the Duke were immediately added to their list.
Yeah, we're not too far away from, some of the famous people that have visited. It was nice to get that recognition and get our names put directly on the wall in the Celebrity Hall of Fame. So now we endorse this place, of course. We get a percentage if you guys eat fish and chips there. So please visit it. Celebrity Hall of Fame fish and chips.
Definitely worth it because it was delicious. As you can see.
Fries are great too. I love fish and chips, but especially when you're getting it from a culture like this. Amazing.
Which we learned, a lot of us associate that with, the UK, Ireland. But we actually learned fish and chips is Italian in origin.
Yep.
Leave it to the Italians to make great food, right?
Yeah, they are awesome at it.
So here we are actually going inside St. Patrick's, and definitely worth it. If you get over there, definitely worth it to go inside.
So this place is 800 years old as is, but it's been, like we said, a Viking settlement before. Guinness did a huge renovation on this after a fire in the 1800s and brought it back to life. We didn't take the audio tour, which is probably a good idea, but this is a crypt of John Swift. It was probably one of the biggest crypts in there. Really crazy stories about dead bodies that were buried in the wall falling on to people during service. Of course, lots of history, and every cathedral I get a chance to go to in Europe, it's
Oh yeah,
take a step inside. So
yeah,
this
so
is
you want to tell the
another
story
saying.
about the door?
Sure, it's another Irish saying, so we never heard this one. So maybe people out there have heard this, but if you chance your arm, you got to chance me arm. Chance me arm. So this is the door where Chance me arm came from. So this is when a bunch of people had held up in the church. There was a bunch of strife in the government, the politics between the Protestants and the Catholics, who was going to get the taxes upstairs, I guess. And so in order to show trust, the man came through the door, shoved his arm through the door, said, "Look, you can chop my arm off right now. We want to come outside and make peace." And by him showing that he was willing to get his arm chopped off, it showed the people inside they could trust out and make a deal. So this is the actual arm where Chance Me Door came from. Chance Me Arm, Chance Me Door.
Chance your arm, because the guy was like, "Have you guys heard that before?" And of course, most of the group was
German.
American or a lot of Germans, and we were like, "No, we have no idea what you're talking about." So he explained it.
We'll be talking about Chance Me Arm for many times.
Yes.
Go ahead, baby. I'm in.
Got to make a move one
Bye.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Ace. This is Ace One's daughter, a future movie star, and
She got
just
trouble
a matter
today
of time.
because she's got 2 strikes on her phone ban.
Well, that's what you do when you're a movie star. You just
it's
obey the rules.
They're trying to ban phones. They would wear check jackets to over there every time.
No doubt, no doubt. So this is a very blurry picture, but this is actually a cool, old spiral staircase going up to the levels of St. Patrick's, where most people are not allowed. They offered us to go up there, being the celebrity status that we have. We were like, we appreciate it, but we have other things we need to look at.
My
So
legs are tired from walking around already.
yeah. So here are the actually the Knights of St. Patrick, which I thought was pretty cool.
This story about St. Patrick was neat too. So I don't know, he came over there. He's not Irish. He's from, Rome or somewhere.
Italian. Yeah.
And
He got rid of the snakes. He got rid of the snakes.
got rid of the snakes. He used this shamrock to show the Trinity, and they were all in. So brilliant marketer.
Yes.
Should be studied.
And here's the St. Patrick Bible. There's some cool looking chairs. By the
So
way, I believe we took a picture of these because these are the chairs of Shaber. So Kevin,
our
maybe
mate.
there is some Irish ancestry for you after all.
This
But,
is a guy who played high school basketball with us in the '90s. A rural athlete. Probably recognize him, but lives in Alaska now. But definitely a famous person in them. No, this Schoberg was a dedication to him.
His fame definitely rivals ours. He even has some sort of my Irish is a little rusty. You see the Shaberg at Genesis there in all capital letters, which is a very prominent. It's a good disease, I guess you could say, right?
It's very good.
So here we are again, going to the chapel. I believe it's the St. Peter's Chapel.
Got a rain jacket. Got your backpacks ready to go.
We did not stand on the steps. We thought about it because we could have, given our celebrity status, but we did not. Yeah, so it's really like a miniature,
Westminster.
Westminster Abbey, but definitely worth seeing while you're in Dublin.
All these different knights, stations, the prominent people in the church, the landowners, and the different hats and things that they'd had. It was just fascinating. You just feel it's very medieval. You go into somewhere from the 1200s. It's been this important for the Irish people and for the British colonies in general, I guess.
Handel is also very big over there, who composed the Messiah. You see the Messiah music book there. I believe there was a bar named after him, and he's quite prominent.
The Irish choir plays in there a few times a day. So if you can line up your visits to see the Irish choir, you can get in free and don't have to pay for the tour. And that would have been a great way to get into the chapel to see that as well.
Another shout out to another rural American high school athlete from the 90s, Tommy Jones.
Tommy Jones,
there you go.
You're represented here.
You were there. You are in St. Patrick's. Congratulations.
This is some of the coolest stuff about Ireland, all these old petroglyphs and stuff. They don't even know where these people came from or where they went. Not a lot of written history, but a lot of evidence left of their time there.
So again, there's Jonathan Swift. Again, Ireland is very proud. They're so proud, as a matter of fact, that they made this stop number 15 on their audio tour, which of course was my number. I believe there's a big connection there. So
that's obvious.
Yes. So here's a list. I believe these were the bishops of St. Pat. I can't remember the terminology, but they were the ran St. Patrick's, basically. Jonathan Swift, again, like I said, they were very proud of Jonathan Swift in Ireland.
They love him. They love James Joyce, and they love that other guy, Thomas Paine. Who was it?
Yes.
I think he's American.
So here's his death mask and the cast of his skull. Like they were all in on Jonathan Swift. So they love Gulliver's Travels over there.
Might be worth a reread. I'm going to have to check it out.
And here is St. Patrick, who many don't know was actually one of the first chiropractors. You can see him. I believe that's him in mid-adjustment there with the hands, healing people.
Focus. All right.
So, so this was actually our second trip to Dublin Castle, I do believe.
Yep, we get to go back through there again. 2 different tour guides, slightly different tours. Better picture of the Justice statue there.
So there's a little, that we were talking about earlier. You can see the scales are not even. She
scales
is
not even. She's not blindfolded and not facing anywhere except to people delivering law and order.
Yep.
So no justice there.
Metallica probably is not a fan of the statue.
No.
So here's a layout of what the castle was originally. The medieval castles were not, the huge castles that we think of, the Cinderella castles and all that we think of.
Well,
They were more laid out like this, as we learned when we were there.
just a fortress with enough room to keep provisions inside during a siege, but held Dublin forever and ever. The Irish countryside was harder for them to take, but this is our experience is Dublin here.
So our next stop on the tour was my personal favorite while we were there. So we got to go to Trinity Library to see the Book of Kells, which, if you're not familiar with the Book of Kells, it is a reproduction of the first four books of the New Testament that I
Yep.
believe they started in like the 5th or 6th century, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right. This is it's crazy. It's like kind of like Indiana Jones when the Nazis are running around trying to destroy all the artifacts and change history. So the Vikings versus the Catholics in the North Seas was quite a war, and the Vikings were trying to extinguish any evidence of Western civilization as we know it today. So they were chasing down this book like it was a holy grail, and it was these monks had it on an island in Iona, in between Ireland and England. And as the Vikings approached, they put it on a boat, snuck it across to Ireland, and had to take it 30 miles up into the highlands to a monastery. And it was stolen, it was buried, and it survives today. So regardless of your beliefs or what's going on, a book like this, it took 6 months just to do a page and show the art,
A single
uh,
page.
and the importance. This would be like chasing the Constitution around if it was being chased back in the day, and it survives, and it's really cool.
Just the artistry, the history, like as Ace One mentioned, regardless of your religious beliefs, just the history alone is just ridiculous. And you can see, I believe this was the original cover, which was actually
Destroyed it.
covered in gold and jewels. And when it got stolen, it was missing. They thought it was gone forever. They found it buried under the ground. But of course, the gold and jewels were all missing.
But they in the dark ages, as language is being taken away, the Roman Empire is fallen, the Renaissance is not there yet, and you're trying to hang on to this ancient knowledge. This is a way to do it, and it's not only through the scripture and the texture and the history of the book, but it's also the symbolism and all this Irish stuff they're able to put in the corners of every page. And here they're showing all the pigments they use to do it. So this would have been a massive underground artistic endeavor back in the day, and to scales we don't really realize, I don't think, anymore, because of the way things have gone digital and cryptocurrency. And this is
and I can't remember exactly how many pages they said were the book consisted of, but we're talking, it was around 300 and something pages front and back, and it took 6 months per page. So I mean, this was a massive undertaking to get
very
this produced.
very educated artists, very educated people protecting this knowledge, gathering together in these secret places during the dark ages to create works of art like this to preserve the cultures. I don't know how to describe it anymore of how cool a piece of art like this is throughout history, especially with the history of it being trying to be destroyed and surviving.
Yeah, and this picture, I've forgotten it now, but I remembered while we were there. These are the four gospels, or the four stages. You've got the lamb, then you have I can't remember what they are now. That's pretty sad.
The lion, the
But
lamb,
the lion, the lamb, the phoenix, and the eagle. But it's basically the four stages of the crucifixion and resurrection of Jesus.
blending all of that with pagan history and everything else, and the Gaelic and Celtic Druidish culture coming into this new knowledge and this new world order. It's wild what
Yeah.
this represents throughout history.
And then our guide made the joke that the portrait of Christ while we were there, he looked a little more ginger than most people.
Yeah, it has a
With
red
the
beard in
picture,
Ireland.
yes.
He's changed quite a bit from his days back in the Middle East.
Yeah. So this is kind of I believe, a cleaner reproduction of the page that we actually got to see, which they don't let you take pictures of. It's in this huge glass case, fully on guard. Like you can't even sneak a picture of
Fort
this thing
Knox.
while you're in there.
It's
Yeah.
like Fort Knox, but what Kyle's getting at is they change the pages of what you get to view. And so we got to see pages that have not been opened in 30 years that were on display.
Yeah.
Very rare to get through there. So,
We actually got to see both pages we got to see were actually artistic pages. They weren't just text. They were two
description pages.
fully painted pages, and they're pretty ridiculously amazing.
So if you're history nerds like this, us, and you get to see gaze on these pages from literally 1,000 years ago of this text of this book, and it's kind of like seeing the Ark of the Grail. It's really cool.
Yes.
But the great display, lots of history on all the different stuff in the history of the book. But they're talk about a little bit more when we get to the library. But one thing that's happened with the fire at Notre Dame, which Kyle and I went by in France, talked about a little bit, is people got very aware, of these relics and these things that we're holding on to and what they mean to the context of history. And so they're going back to the Trinity Library. They're doing a bunch of fireproofing, and they're going to put this book away for no telling how long and bury it away. So just being able to see it firsthand is something, as a history nerd, I thought was cool to do in my life.
If this is something you have any interest in seeing, you need to get over there as soon as possible, because they're about to digitize all of this stuff and lock away the originals. So we were lucky enough; we kind of got to see both parts. We got to see the old and the new, which, I mean, the digital you'll see coming up in the next few slides is amazing, but it doesn't compare to seeing the original. So if you want to see it, you need to make plans to get to Dublin as soon as possible. So here we are. We're getting ready to go into the long room of the library. So any Harry Potter fans, any Star Wars fans, this library might look a little familiar to you once we get in there.
So here it is, and the smell, the view, it's everything that you can see in the picture. These books are ancient. So this is British held Ireland, holding up years of knowledge. So there's the most ancient books in the entire history of the British Empire. The copies of them here, or the originals here. So they can go back and trace from the Iliad from Egypt to China, from 5000 BC all the way to present India. All these things and all these records are kept here at this Trinity Library, like an Oxford or a Harvard or a Cambridge. So this history is not lost to time. So this was literally the internet back in the day, and this was like the main hub. This was like Silicon Valley for knowledge, all in this room to represent the entire world. So if coming from any culture anywhere, this is your complete encyclopedia to everything that's going to happen, all the sciences, all the chemistry, all written down, stored in this one room. And it's just, you walk in there and this vault of knowledge that is still there today, and it just is mind blowing.
Yeah. So this is the new kind of the modern twist they added to it. But this is a sculpture called Gaia, which is just a huge sculpture of Earth. It's pretty. It is
really.
It
is really cool that a lot of the shelves are empty because they're about to shut this down and put all the flame proof on all the wood, clean the books, and do all that. And they added that art exhibit just to, I guess, to kind of symbolize the grandeur of the world in the library compared to the grandeur of the world in the thing, as being this big thing.
Kind of pacifies some of the tourists because so many of the books were missing. They're like, well, hey, here's this big sculpture to look at.
I didn't really need it, but I appreciate what they're trying to do with it. And it definitely was a cool modern touch in such an old building. But I was there to see these wooden spirals on these shelves. This is what was there for.
So this is actually a copy of the original basically the Irish Declaration of Independence.
Yeah, we saw this painted all over town, and talking about when they're seizing their power back. And just to touch on that a little bit, It was in, this Irish had been held for 700 years by the British before the Vikings. We got this opportunity in 1916, and they had the Easter Uprising, which is kind of a rare revolution of the people in the world to take back their power. They seized it while British were at war in World War One with the Germans, and it just kind of timing lined up for them right. But it took them from 1916 and all the way until 1970 until they actually were able to go to public schools and educate themselves and do a lot of stuff we've been used to for a long time. So interesting.
Yep. So here is the Brian Baru harp. You might remember we talked about him earlier. He was on the he was the sculpture next to St. Patrick on the Abbey part of Dublin Castle that we saw. Um, and another thing we learned is Ireland actually, the harp is their symbol, but it's also the symbol for Guinness. They actually had to buy that back from Guinness. And what they did was basically do a mirror image of the harp so that they could use it for national pride without
So,
pissing Guinness off, who
no, the Guinness made
basically
it.
sounds like they own Ireland.
They own Ireland. They're not beloved, I don't think, even though they drink their beer from noon until 2 in the morning, 7 days a week,
Right.
all the time. But I think they're more of a loyalist thing. But the Guinness did do a lot of philanthropical work across the city, and of course is a major money source for Dublin. But the harp is definitely from Ireland. The Middle East goddess that came over there is a revered symbol. So that was cool. It was mahogany. I think that thing had been there since like year 1000 or something and still existed. So it was wild.
Yes, this many leather bound books that smelled of rich mahogany, much like Ron Burgundy in Anchorman.
A lot.
But here's Samuel Kyle. I believe this was a small nod to me in some way. And so here's another view of the harp.
But the busts
But
that were all through that library were all the Aristotle and Socrates and all the minds from around the world. We didn't see Jordan or Kobe, which I think should be in there too.
yeah. And these names, I don't know if you caught these when we were looking through, but the names up on the wall, they have some open spaces, and you can get your name up there for a small donation of, was it 100,000 euros, I believe?
100,000 euros, you can get your name
Yeah.
up there and be
So,
a life donor.
yeah, if you got that laying around and you want your name in the Trinity Library, just give them a call, and they'll get your name up there. So
this
here's
is
just some pictures of the campus as we were coming out. So
the courtyard's worth walking through alone, even if you can't make it into the library. And
yeah,
then we learned Courtney Cox went to school there. Our Courtney Love.
Courtney Love,
We saw a
and got
fountain that
kicked out for
reminded us of
selling
Friends.
drugs.
Yeah,
Oddly enough.
And her husband, Kurt Cobain, later in life, his grandparents lived across the street from John Lennon's grandparents. There's all kinds of crazy stuff going on in Ireland.
Yeah, absolutely crazy.
I just want to mention again, this is original rule 90s high school athlete gear. It says Heath Pirates on there. It's my tracksuit.
Yes.
I'm not supposed to be wearing when I'm talking about Ireland. And if you focus in on the Duke and Ace One shirt from Beyond the Buzzer, there's a picture of Kyle wearing this tracksuit, although
Yes.
his jacket has gone missing. And so I just want to offer a reward if that ever comes around to anybody's bins and Paducah as you're doing vintage shopping or anything like that. There's
Yes.
a big reward to get that back because it's on the uniform.
Yes, I believe it was destroyed by Satan at some point, but that is a story for another time.
So
here we are.
Check those.
Yes. So here we are moving on to, so this is going to be the new digital display of the Trinity Library, the Book of Kells. So they are working on this now. It's actually, it's pretty impressive, to be honest. But
it's really cool.
Still want to get over and see the original if you can.
But it shows the interest that if it's just us two dorks come to look at a book, but actually a lot of people in the world think this is neat. So that enough that are spending millions of dollars to make an amazing exhibit about it.
Yeah, and these busts actually have holographic faces that interact with you and move. We found Socrates here, and for some reason he did not mention Bill and Ted at all. which we were kind of confused about.
It left that entire part of his history out, which is the most important. But
maybe they're still working on that part.
It was very creative to see what they're doing with all this, to be able to talk to the people from history in their accents and their voice from the time and hear their stories was cool. Or the harps.
So this was the musical instruments, and those musical instruments were actually the playing music. So if you were there, they were actually playing the sounds of whatever instrument would have made at the time.
Just a wealth of knowledge, as the library was back in the day, but just
and I think I got a video coming up here of the Book of Kells, what it's going to be in the future, rather than seeing the actual book. You're going to see this digital replica.
It doesn't go to say, but it is trippy to be in there and watch this flying off, because it flies off, not off over the page, but all over the museum. And then you get to see each page broken down with the different outlines and symbolism, and each piece of it is such a rich piece of history. You could probably spend, years and years just researching corners of this book, and to watch this fly all over the walls was neat. This video doesn't do it justice, but it is. You can kind of see what they're doing with it.
Yeah, very cool. So this is the interactive experience where you go in and you're just completely surrounded by videos. And it tells the story of the Book of Kells and how it was moved from island to island, and how the Vikings tried to destroy it, and how it's hidden. A very cool experience.
And all the different artists that participated on it, they thought there was 3, then maybe there's 5, and they can research and find out who these people were and the stories of it.
I believe we have another video coming up just showing you how these walls.
I mean, this was totally covert MI6, CIA, like hidden stuff back in the day. This is like James Bond. It's wild.
So here's just a short video just showing you that immersive experience you have in
there. Very, very creative. Yeah, well, they make such a big deal out of a book. Well, it's a lot of history that was preserved that we would never have if it wasn't there, and it's unique. There's not many of them. Most of them are not there anymore. This is a rare copy of some from the Middle Ages that didn't survive most places.
It was actually written on vellum, which is calf skin.
Super well. I mean, like the pages we got to see, of course, we couldn't take pictures of, but it's vibrant.
Yeah. Here's a digital reproduction of the library in Trinity, which is, again, very impressive. But if you can get over to see the real thing, you really want to. So here's another video just showing the books going onto the shelves.
And as me and Kyle travel, we have short time to see stuff. We can't sit around very long. We've got a lot to pack in just in a few short days to be able to make it back. We basically did a weekend in Dublin just to prove how easy it is to get to Europe and back. But you can spend a whole day at this exhibit. We were there for a few hours.
Now this is actually a reproduction of one of the pages we actually got to see. So we got to see the real deal of this page here.
Apologize for my teenagers in the background. I can't do anything about them.
It happened. And this was the other page. So these were the 2 pages we got to see. Like I said, we got to see 2 full artistic pages, no text. It was all artwork, and it was the first time in over 30 years that anybody got to see those pages. Did they roll it out for us because we are rural 90s athletes? Probably, but we can't really prove it. We can't prove it, but I think they knew we were coming. So, of course, to celebrate afterwards, we had to go have a Guinness with this random guy who offered to buy us a Guinness.
So, we wanted to go souvenir shopping for our family. We found this great outlet that had 4 or 5 different locations throughout the city. I found Kyle bought me this. It's a little Irish skull. This got just a little bit of a memorabilia. So we picked up some silly stuff like Guinness golf tees and Guinness hoodies and Guinness t-shirts for the kids, Ireland t-shirts for the kids. I bought a really cool Irish sweater for my wife. I got this amazing hat over there that's a Kalani style, made in Ireland. Kyle's got his Peaky Blinder on as well. Got his sweater for myself. So we spent quite a bit of time in there, and Kyle was in there still trying to find some people from folks he works with in the office, and I skipped outside on the steps and was waiting for him posted up at a bar stool. This gentleman, the Irish gentleman, came over, started talking to me. I couldn't understand hardly anything he said. My Kentucky accent, his Irish accent, and the pints he had been celebrating with that day were not aligning for audible interpretation to happen. But he offered to buy me a Guinness. Kyle comes out a few minutes later. He buys him a Guinness. So here's 2 free Guinness in this amazing Irish pub that's been there since, late early 1800s, as they are on every corner. And then the bartender walks over with a free whiskey. He's like, "You guys want whiskey?" We're like, "No, we don't." He's like, "It's free." And so we were stuck with this. I guess it was Jameson's. They had some limes in there. And so this is the free bar where we were celebrated as we were walking through our adventures in Dublin.
Again, was it because we were rural high school athletes in the 90s? Probably, but we can't prove it. And again, we go back to there was so many just ridiculously talented musicians over there. And I took a video of this guy. I don't know if you'll be able to hear it. It's on the next slide, but I believe he was singing U2 at the time. It just ridiculously good.
All these guys get signed up so easy.
Yeah, I don't know if that sound's coming through. We can't hear it, but
I can't hear it. But some John Denver and like Eagles and all the stuff. But then, the Irish folk songs were so good.
And if you guys didn't know, apparently "Country Roads" by John Denver is a huge, huge, huge hit in Europe. Everybody over there loves that song. So here we're making our way. We've had enough Guinness, and we need to make it over to see the actual place where it's made. So we're headed over to it's next to the St. James Parish.
And so we read this wild thing on this parish, and this is the kind of stuff they were dealing with back in the day. Some guy was about to get married. He had converted from Protestantism back to Catholic. Right before he got married, they allowed him to marry, and then they executed him right there in front of in front of the marriage party. So 2 for 1, 2 of the best days of your lives, or 2 best days for gathering. But here's the St. James Gate for the actual Guinness brewery. Huge block of distilleries and stuff down there. So just to cross it off the list, we went and showed our faces.
Yeah, so here's the tasting that was going on while we were there. And then here's another Office reference, which I didn't expect to see. So yeah, Beats Beers Battlestar Galactica. So Jim and Dwight probably really appreciate that bar.
This was the first electric Volkswagen VW I've ever seen in my life. I just noticed in the paper the other day they rolled off the ships here in Nova Scotia, Canada. And so they're over here, but I talked to a lady about it, all-wheel drive, and just, the classic hippie mobile in electric, which was kind of cool to see. Stuff you don't see in America all the time, or, sometimes you see in Europe first.
And as you can see, steering wheel's on the wrong side for most of us.
Very confusing, especially with the roundabouts. We're not going to go. We went to a couple cool toy stores. Actually, there were some very cool ones in the older buildings downtown. But this is like their Toys R Us version, or their bigger toy stores. So had to get a picture of the Duke in there shopping for collectibles he may not be able to find stateside.
Yep, we had to go in there and look around, of course.
He has luck of the Irish.
Now, these next few pictures, I believe Ace One's going to take the lead on, because this was the day. This was after I had come back stateside. So,
no, sad to lose Kyle, and had one more night. It was either fly out on Monday and pay an arm and a leg, or pay the same arm and a leg to stay one more night. And so I just cheaped out on the airfare and got a hotel. So this is the Harcourt Hotel. It was it's pretty cool. It was a home of an Irish playwright, George Bernard Shaw. So this was his home, like in 1874, had been converted into a really beautiful bar and hotel room right in this district, close to St. Stephen's Green. So it's an 1880s Victorian garden in the area. So um, spent the last night there talking to a couple Irish guys about music and different things they listen to, and the culture and the nightclub scene and the history of Dublin. So this is just classic Dublin.
Little bottles of Jameson there, I see.
Oh, geez, those guys love that. Stay away. Yeah, I just thought this was really cool how they had it lined up. This is the room, simple but nice. The streets up and down. Dublin, like every other great city's had a lot of fire, so there is a lot of 1800s there, but you'll find stuff from the Brazen Pub from 1092, like we did as well.
So these are just a few shots. I was lucky enough on the ride home to have a window seat. These are just a few shots of the Irish countryside on the way out.
It's like stained
Pretty,
glass.
just ridiculously amazing. Going through the clouds, but there's a little bit, but this next one you're going to see coming up where you can really just see all the
Absolutely beautiful.
farms.
It's the Emerald Isle.
Just crazy how green it is.
So we want to get back to our tour guides a little bit. This is the garden, but this is just an old
This is the
garden
park.
home.
Yeah, so you got to visit a park and a museum after I left.
Yeah,
So,
just went on the tour guide's recommendation to this park and to the archaeological museum to see all the relics from the Viking history and the early days of Ireland. But this is the goal to get off the side from the tours. But I think at the end here, when we get done looking through some of these photos, we're going to talk a little bit more about the tour guide, what he meant to us, and I also want to just mention right now while we're getting into that as a transition story is um, Kyle and I, when we first met in seventh grade, some of the stuff we initially did in our studies was Greek mythology, and that led into our history kindredship over the Greeks and the Roman mythology. And so one of the questions Kyle and I had for our tour guide when we got on the tour was like, well, why in the world did the Romans not take Ireland? They had built Hadrian's Wall. They went all the way to Scotland. They've been to, took over all of Europe, a lot of the Middle East, down to Egypt. What was the reason Ireland wasn't taken? So if you've seen the movie Braveheart, you've seen the people painted in blue. That was Scotland, but apparently that was part of the Celtic and Gaelic culture there in Ireland too, from huts like these back in the day. So the leader of the tribe, um, would suckle the entire tribe out of their nipple to prove that they were the leader. And so
yes.
anybody that would challenge that, young man, a brother, a rival, somebody they thought would be able to take their throne, they would cut the nipples off of these people. And so when the Romans showed up to Ireland, these blue people in this giant rainforest ran out of the woods high on psilocybin mushrooms with no nipples. And the Romans decided to
Completely
not go
naked.
to Ireland.
Completely naked.
So
Yeah.
no Ireland for Rome. That was dispelled pretty quick. It was too cold and too much craziness, which makes sense, and it still carries some of that spirit through today in their people, which was fantastic to see. But the tour guide was perfectly self-loathing, angry, hilarious. Just had all the right juice to go and put on the best tour. He swore a lot. He told real stories, and we couldn't appreciate his style anymore.
He was fantastic, and we'll be getting to him soon.
It's
But
just
yeah,
a
if you
lot
go,
of the
we'll show you how
archaeological
to book his
museum
tour. But he
was
was
one of
the perfect blend of knowledge and humor and sarcasm. It's right up our alley. Stop
that's
looking at me, Swan.
a swan. Below forts and stuff in the parks.
Leading horse.
And this is R2D2. Gen X is everywhere, everyone.
So here it is. This is the tour we took. That is Keith right there. He led the tour. So the Dublin Highlights Hidden Gems guided walking tour. Cannot recommend that enough. It was absolutely phenomenal.
Our tour guide was named Keith. Another tour guide was named Ian, and we saw him running around with his other tour. But both of those guys will be who you want when you're doing these.
Absolutely.
And if you give them bad reviews, just not
because
good.
because they cuss too much, we have to sympathize him and just fuck Brian.
He's a bad guy. Yeah, Brian can't be talking all those.
Yeah, some American gave him a bad review because he cuts too much, and that was his response. So and we concur. Brian,
yeah, fuck Brian. He's bad.
100%. So this is the tour we took the second day where we got to go inside St. Patrick's and do the Book of Kells. Absolutely phenomenal. This was our tour guide. His name was Sean. This is a picture of his other tour that he does. He's actually a certified storyteller, I believe is what it's called in Ireland. And he had kind of like
he told us some
show that he did
of some kind of fountain of youth of an Irishman who had left, gone across the island, lived another entire life, came back, and 300 years had transpassed, and you can feel all the elf and fairy and dwarf and leprechaun more there. The veil is very thin. This is an old world place where many things that are unexplained are still happening and have happened.
And again, this is where we forged our rings. Again, super fun experience. I highly recommend going over there and doing that. It was very cool to do. We'll bring it back to full screen, and we'll kind of show off our jewelry that we made ourselves.
Here's mine. Here's my Irish skull.
One with the leprechaun skull, as you can see. But.
So Dublin, you might not want to bring your family there. You're not going to sit on the beach. You're probably not going to have the go-karts and stuff like that. This is a place just to explore the history. Next time I go back, I definitely want to get out and see more of the countryside. We had limited time to do that, but if you're just wanting to scratch the surface, see Ireland, meet the people, Dublin's great. Everybody we talked to was amazing. We'd sit down for meals and overpacked restaurants. We'd have gentlemen pull up and sit there with us and share pints, talk about the differences in the States and the differences in Ireland, their history, places they want to go, places they've been. They definitely have the gift of gab. The music's great. Yeah. And as friendly as anywhere I've ever been. And I came away knowing a lot, but really the Irish people is what I kept in my heart. I thought that was the best part of the trip.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say that the friendliness in Ireland rivals that in Canada. Like they were fantastic people. Doing 2 days is you can get so much of Dublin done in 2 days. You can get everything you need to do in Dublin done in 2 days.
And we didn't break the bank on this. Is the plane ticket is under $1,000 for a round trip. That's where you're spending the money. But you're going to need to go somewhere extremely different. And like I said, if it was going to an SEC football game or a Pac-12 game or whatever you're looking to do, you're going to spend the same money. So if you have interest in going to Europe, do it. You won't regret it.
At Dublin, you're going to hear arguably the coolest accent on the planet. If I could do it at all, I would, but I can't.
No,
and there's so many different versions of it. It's just amazing.
It's almost like a sing song when they're speaking. It's you just hang on every word, and the sayings they have are great. I want to talk a little bit about the tour. The guy brought us around this amazing theater close to the Temple Bar, and this was a place that one of only 3 places, I think, at the time in the British Empire where royals were allowed to watch Shakespeare, because it's got to be super fancy for them to be able to do anything. And just little things like they had limestone in Ireland. It's seabed from a million years ago. They could heat the limestone up enough to put off a light. And this is where the phrase lime light came from, because these Shakespeare actors were being presented to the royals under the limelight, this glowing limestone. So that's just picking up pieces of stuff like that. You'll never forget being in the place where those things originated were cool. The tour guide also sang a song about the Molly Malone, the lady who worked in the world's oldest profession and also was a fishmonger who made a life for herself in Ireland, a testament to their survival over there. And on the third story of a building across from where he was telling this story, there was a full grown white poodle named Molly, who he claimed would come out and listen to his tour every Saturday. And at the end of the tour, she would bark and applaud him. And that actually happened when he got done singing the song to us. And just little
100%.
stuff, little
100%.
travel anecdotes like that, you can't get enough of. So,
Yeah. Can't recommend those tours enough. Keith was amazing. Sean was amazing. Check out the links that we have earlier in the show. If you go over there, like I said, 2 days in Dublin, you can fit in everything, and then if you're there longer, we didn't get to, but one of these days we're going to make it out to the countryside, down to Blarney Castle and some other things like that. So
yeah, but 3 tours in 2.5 days, several pubs, a lot of live music, and I felt like I'm a Dublin expert. I've crossed that off the list. I'm ready for the next city. So we're thinking about Scotland, Edinburgh, maybe for our future adventures. We're going to travel back and do some shows that we've done already in Halifax just to talk about some more time Kyle and I spent together. A little bit more anecdotes here. London, we
yeah.
still have to fix up with our two buddies that we're trying together, Nick and
So
Brandon. So you guys can
all you
look forward
Brandon
to them.
fans, don't get discouraged. He is coming back. We've got one more episode to finish out our London trip, and then just to look ahead, we're October 2025. We're talking about getting the entire gang back together, and we're going to take on Spain and Morocco. So that's going to be on the list soon.
We love reporting this stuff back. We like to talk about what we've learned. We try to capture as much history as we can, but just hope you get the experience of going over there, spending some time, and coming back, and um, just seeing it's like being in Star Trek, going to a different world. So of course we're trying to sell this to our coast friends to get their stuff together, get their passports, but of course to our legions as fans as well. And you have tours out there you want us to come see, suggest us, we'll come visit you in your countries, we'll promote you so that you can get the fame.
Absolutely. We can't stress enough how much easier and affordable this is than people think it is, because it's really it's not going to break the bank for you guys to do this. I mean, it's
No,
not a realm
I
of
think
possibility.
I think I called Kyle at the end of August, and by the time 1st of October we ran around, we have been there and been back, and it's just now for the next. And uh just gorgeous. Talking to the taxi drivers, talking to the waitresses. We met a waitress from Louisville. We met people from Nova Scotia. The world's getting small. You get to meet a lot of people. I made a friend with a cab driver, drove me back to the airport. I showed him pictures of my boat, pictures of fishing over in Nova Scotia. He invited me to go fishing with him in Norway one day. So you get to meet a lot of great people.
Yeah, actually, I had a conversation in an Irish pub with a waitress about Thunder over Louisville, which was just it's kind of crazy.
So fun. So there's a big world out there, folks. I wish we could tell you more about Ireland than we have, but stuff. If you're interested in seeing stuff like the Book of Kells and those libraries like that, it's just you come back and it's amazing. We actually talked to, just to get back on the taxi driver thing real quick. We talked to a gentleman from Iran who lived in Ireland most of his life, who just got back from Egypt. And he told us all the cool places, how to do Egypt, where to see the pyramids, how to get to Luxor, the resort to go to on the way back. And these are conversations you're not going to find unless you're out there traveling.
Right? Yeah, there are other places outside of the States, and they're absolutely worth seeing. So
And we're also looking forward to the upcoming basketball season. It's our first season of Mark Pope, so we'll be reporting back on that. It's going to be exciting stuff this year. We're gonna follow the Cats as we kill time in between our next adventures around the world.
Absolutely. So thanks for joining us. Be sure to give us a like, drop us a comment. If there's anywhere you want us to go explore, give us a shout out. We'll do our best to make it over there. But
Tell us cool
once
places
again,
you've been while you're there. We'll go.
yeah, absolutely. So this has been Beyond the Buzzer, episode 10. I'm the Duke.
This is Ace One. We're signing off. We'll see you soon from Edinburgh, Nova Scotia, for parts of England and Spain. Peace.
Peace.